JP Morgan just made the largest debt commitment for a leveraged buyout in history. $20 billion to finance the $55 billion LBO of Electronic Arts. Now, to put that into perspective, when TXU, which was the prior largest LBO until EA came along, when TXU went private in 2007, which also was, by the way, a year before the global financial crisis and its eventual bankruptcy, the deal was slightly smaller, and the debt was raised from a large syndicate of banks and investors. So no one single player was on the hook for the entire amount. This time, JP Morgan is going solo. Well, at least for now anyway. So the way that it works if a bank underwrites a deal like this is it's similar to saying you're going on a vacation with a group of friends and you put the entire, call it hotel stay, on your credit card. Now, eventually you are going to ask for your friends to pay you and to split the difference. But initially, you are wearing the entire risk. Like you are on the hook to make that whole payment, and you then are kind of trusting that other people are going to come in. Right now, JP Morgan is on the hook for the entire $20 billion of debt. Now, based on news articles, it does look like JP Morgan is eventually going to try to syndicate that debt out in like your traditional leverage buyout fashion. The way that the traditional LBO financing works is you typically have what's called leverage loans, which is basically loans that are coming from the various banks, like your Cities, your Bank of Americas. And then there is also what's called high yield bonds, which is just bonds that are issued to the public markets for people who want to have like the riskier types of debt investment with the higher coupons. Right? So the typical structure would look something like, 4.5 times bank loans and call it 3.5 times bonds. And that's your classic LBO financing. And given the size of the deal, banks are already lining up to get a piece of the action because there's an estimated $500 million in fees that are up for grabs with this debt package. Now, what also makes this moment a little different from 2007 is that JP Morgan has a little bit of a backstop. So they have $50 billion of private credit that they can tap if the syndication market seizes up. So in other words, if other banks and public investors don't want this debt, JP Morgan can move pieces of this into its own direct lending vehicles. And so this is a safety net that the TXU era lenders didn't have, and why a lot of them were like stuck with what's called hung deals when the global financial crisis hit. But the risk still isn't zero. It's like putting the entire hotel stay on your credit card and then none of your friends ever send you any money. So if credit markets deteriorate, JP Morgan will be the one holding the exposure. So TLDR, I guess it's probably a good thing that JP Morgan is considered too big to fail.